I'm Paul Wolf, and this is My City TV.
Talking about my city.
Welcome. John Spann is here with us today, who is the Curator of Education and Programming for the two Mississippi museums here in Jackson. John, thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, I'm excited to learn more about you and about the work you do, but I guess the work you do at the two museums is coming to an end as we tape this, coming to an end, but at the time this airs, you've already started a new job. Tell me where you are.
I am working with the Mississippi Humanities Council as the Programming and Outreach Officer. So I will be working with humanities entities all across the state, creating outreach initiatives and programs that uplift, the stories of each city of Mississippi, each county, and really working closer with the communities that make Mississippi what it is, and trying to uplift these communities with different grant opportunities and connecting people to the right resources. So I'm looking forward to growing in this position and making Mississippi and Jackson not only a better place, but a closer place.
It sounds like you've got a big job ahead of you. Before we get into the reason that I really want to have you here today, and that's to talk about this weekend's Juneteenth holiday. Give me a little background on yourself. Where'd you grow up? Kind of your lot in life to get you here today.
Yeah, so I'm originally born in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, but I've been raised in Mississippi all my life. I started off being raised in Columbus, Mississippi. That's where my father is from. And he passed away in 97. And so from then on, my mother is actually from Jackson, Mississippi. So we moved back to Jackson to be closer to her family. And I've been in the Jackson metro area since I was 6, 7 years old, and got into museums literally through volunteering. I was practicing for the LSAT after I had graduated, and while I was waiting for scores and things, I was volunteering at the Capitol, at the Mississippi State Capitol, giving tours there and just, passing the time. But I really enjoyed what I was doing, and I obviously showed. And so I was offered a higher position, a paid position as a digital archivist at the Department of Archives and History. Then I moved to full-time position with the education section of Mississippi Department of Archives and History, working with all the museums that the Department of Archives and History govern. And then from there, Pam Jr. Hired me to be the, at that time, it was the Curator of Education for the Mississippi Civil Rights Museum in 2017. And so that was a great opportunity for me to be a part of the inaugural or founding staff for the Civil Rights Museum. That was a great time. And then now it has evolved into me working for both museums. I'm now Curator of Education and Programming for the History Museum as well, the State History Museum as well.
So much history, so much education as we hear the thunder rumbling behind us as we record on this summer day. John, important holiday coming up this weekend for African Americans, Juneteenth. We've really seen that gain a lot of prominence over the last several years, and I kind of want to know why. I kind of want to know why it's coming into our conscience now, and we'll find that out with John Spann right after this.
Kind of spicy.
Back with John Spann from the two Mississippi museums. Now, as we record this, that's where he is. But now, as you see this, he's with the Mississippi Humanities Council. John, before the break, I wanted to dive a little deeper into Juneteenth. And for those who are not acquainted with the Juneteenth holiday, tell us a little more about Juneteenth.
So Juneteenth is a holiday that celebrates the emancipation of African Americans, the formerly enslaved people here in America. The Emancipation Proclamation happened in 1863, passed by Abraham Lincoln. And the whole vehicle of emancipation was different for various enslaved people throughout the country. Different states heard things faster than others. And partly, some African-American men and women were emancipated in 1861 because they were able to escape and run to Union lines and be freed that way, even though the Emancipation Proclamation had not been put out. But emancipation was a thing in 1863, and people were hearing it slowly, but it didn't really start getting traction until like 1865. So even after the surrender at Appomattox Courthouse in April of 1865, people were still enslaved, okay? And so the importance of Juneteenth is that finally, on June 19th, 1865 in Galveston, Texas, pretty much everybody had learned that emancipation was a thing and that there was no such thing as slavery anymore in America. So Galveston is like the holding ground. And some people say that it was because a messenger on the way to Texas was killed and the message was delayed that way, or that the Texas planters who were owning these enslaved people wanted to keep them enslaved for another crop season to make sure they got the full use out of them before they were free, which is really crazy to think about and sad. But altogether, this was a celebration that was celebrated immediately. In 1866 is the earliest record that we know of African Americans celebrating their freedom. And even though you have people like Frederick Douglass, who says that, the 4th of July is not my freedom day. It's not something to celebrate for me because as the former enslaved, I celebrate the January 1st of 1863, which is the Emancipation Proclamation Day. So not only was that celebrated, but also Juneteenth was everybody realized that emancipation had happened and there was no more slavery in America. Mississippi itself has a emancipation story. Some people think that, emancipation happened in June 19th, 1865 for everyone. But like I said earlier, it happened in different pockets, different vehicles carried the message of emancipation. And on May 8th of 1865, in Columbus, Mississippi, Union troops declared that there was no more slavery and the Emancipation Proclamation had happened in the city of Columbus, Mississippi. And that celebration is called 8th of May Day. And it is still celebrated in Columbus, Mississippi today, which is my hometown. And students from the School of Math and Science there celebrate that holiday. And Chuck Yarbrough, who is a history teacher at the School of Math and Science, continues to push out the information and really the history of that day and the people that created 8th of May Day in Columbus, Mississippi.
Yeah, such a great significance here in Mississippi and, of course, all over the country. Now, John, I always ask this question of everyone who comes on the show, and I think you, being a Jacksonian for most of your life, can appreciate it, and that is, what makes Jackson such a special place? Why do you want to make Jackson better?
Growing up here in Jackson, living in the Madison area, hanging out in Jackson, you hear a lot of things, negative things and stuff like that. But as I grew up, especially in high school, and saw that Jackson was not really what people had made it out to be, I really, put in my mind that I want to be a part of changing the perception, changing the mindset of not only people who live outside of Jackson, but people who live in Jackson. Because there's a lot of people who have lived in Jackson and they decide to leave because there's nothing here for them, in their words. But I think that Jackson is a great place because it's community based. I feel a closeness to the people here. Everybody who visits from outside of Mississippi, they feel that Jackson itself is like a very, even though it's a city, it's very homey and country kind of vibe, and people are nice and people are giving. And that's not from the outside. It's from people who live here too. I feel that way. I feel like the community here gives back. I felt the love of the Jackson community within the past 3 years, just being in this position, just being in my position as curator at the 2 Mississippi museums, and the support and love has been, unlimited. So I want to continue to give back to the city that gives to me, and be on the upswing of bringing Jackson into, prominence, and keeping young folks who are intelligent and who have, who are artistic and who have things to say and who have a voice, keep them here in the state, and particularly in Jackson, to make Jackson better. And I can't say that without being an example. So I want to be an example.
John's curated a list of Juneteenth resources that we will share today in our show notes, and we'll also put links to some Juneteenth events going on here this weekend in Jackson. Educator and friend of Jackson, John Spann, thanks so much for being here today.
Thank you.
That's the show. Check us out at jxn.ms and join us for another episode of My City TV.